Good morning, everybody. I'm proud to be joined by two of my outstanding colleagues, the senators from Maryland and Wisconsin. Now, over a month ago, we said that hearing from witnesses and reviewing documents is the bare minimum for a fair trial. Since then, redacted emails were released that said there was clear direction from the president to hold the military assistance. The GAO concluded that the president broke the law in doing so. And new information from Mr. Parnas revealed a plot to remove a U.S. ambassador. And now, according to the New York Times, Ambassador Bolton wrote in his book that he was ordered by the president to continue freezing assistance until Ukraine announced the political investigations the president was seeking, including the investigation into the Bidens. This is stunning. It goes right to the heart of the charges against the president. Ambassador Bolton essentially confirms the president committed the offenses charged in the first article of impeachment. It boils down to one thing. We have a witness with first-hand evidence of the president's actions for which he is on trial. He is ready and willing to testify. How can Senate Republicans not vote to call that witness and request his documents? Anyone who says the House case lacks eyewitnesses and then votes to prevent eyewitnesses from testifying is talking out of both sides of their mouth. Also, according to the report, several sections of Mr. Bolton's book further implicate Mr. Mulvaney. Previously, Mr. Mulvaney denied ever being on the phone when the president spoke to Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Bolton writes that Mr. Mulvaney was on the phone with Rudy and the president was discussing the removal of Ambassador Yovanovitch. Mr. Bolton's book is further evidence that a large number of people were, quote, in the loop on this scheme, as Ambassador Sondland said, and now they are all covering up. So it seems like not only is there more evidence that the president held the aid off to get a political gain, an investigation, but there seems to be a giant cover-up among so many of the leading people in the White House who knew about it and said nothing about it, let alone tried to stop it. If there was ever even a shred of logic left to not hear witnesses and review the documents, Mr. Bolton's book just erased it. Ambassador Bolton's manuscript was sent to the White House over a month ago. The president ordered everyone with firsthand knowledge of his actions not to testify in the impeachment inquiry. We're all staring a White House cover-up in the face. It is so clear what's going on here. I don't need to spell it out for you. If Senate Republicans are not going to vote to call Mr. Bolton and Mr. Mulvaney and the other witnesses now, if they're not going to ask for notes and emails, they're going to be part of the cover-up too, because we have this out in the open. It's up to 4 Senate Republicans, just 4 Senate Republicans, to ensure that John Bolton, Mick Mulvaney, Mr. Blair, and Mr. Duffy testify in the Senate trial. It's up to 4 Republicans to get the documents that surrounded their actions in those days. One final point. Of course, the president denied Ambassador Bolton's account in a series of late-night tweets. Already some Republicans are saying, oh, this is just a he said affair, just a matter of conflicting accounts. I would remind everyone, between President Trump and Ambassador Bolton, only one of them is willing to testify in the Senate under oath. Only Mr. Bolton is willing to swear that he is telling the truth. Senator Cardin.
Well, let me thank Senator Schumer for outlining the absolute necessity for this impeachment trial to be able to hear directly from the witnesses that have the direct knowledge. I want to just go back to Saturday with the President's counsel telling us the importance to the President to be able to confront witnesses and to be able to cross-examine. What they said was, in cross-examination, we can find out the truth. Well, we have a different view by Ambassador Bolton in regards to what the President is saying. The only way we can discover the truth is to have Ambassador Bolton testify under oath, subject to cross-examination, in order to find out the truth. The same thing's true with the other witnesses that were not permitted to testify in the House. Mr. Mulvaney has direct knowledge of the President's participation. He has made some statements in the public that seem to corroborate the House manager's case. But let's hear him under oath, subject to cross-examination, to find out the truth. Under the Constitution, the Senate is the body that conducts the trial. We have some guidance from the Supreme Court in the Nixon case as to what we need to do in order to carry out that constitutional responsibility. But to have a trial, you need to hear from witnesses. You need to see the documents. Under Senate precedent, the Senate is not bound by the record established in the House. To the contrary, the Senate has its own responsibility to develop its record, and not what the House has presented to it. So under all those circumstances, in order to be able to have a fair trial to reach a just conclusion, it's absolutely essential that we allow the witnesses to testify in the Senate, subject to cross-examination, so that we can, in fact, know the truth.
Thank you, Senator Cardin. Senator Baldwin.
Thank you. It's gut check time for members of the United States Senate. Every senator took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and every senator needs to ask themselves whether they're going to live up to that oath in this Senate impeachment trial. Since the beginning, we have called for a full, fair, and honest trial. And since the beginning, we have called for critical documents and relevant witnesses with firsthand knowledge about President Trump's conduct. Every Senate impeachment trial in our nation's history has included witnesses, and this Senate trial should be no different. The media reports about what former National Security Advisor John Bolton would testify to go to the heart of this impeachment trial: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Let us not complicate this simple fact. It is obstruction of Congress for the White House to prevent John Bolton from testifying about a direct conversation he had with the President in August of 2019 that implicates the President in an abuse of power. If Ambassador Bolton provided the White House with evidence about President Trump withholding congressionally authorized and mandated U.S. security assistance to help Ukraine fight Russian aggression in an exchange for political investigations from Ukraine to benefit President Trump personally, then that would constitute direct evidence of abuse of power. If Ambassador Bolton testifies to these facts about his August conversation with President Trump, then it supports what Ambassador Sondland told Senator Johnson in an August 30th, 2019 phone call. In that conversation, Ambassador Sondland said the release of withheld U.S. security assistance to Ukraine was conditioned on an investigation by Ukraine that would benefit President Trump politically. It would also directly contradict what the President told Senator Johnson on the phone on August 31st, 2019, where, according to Senator Johnson, the President said, "I would never do that. Who told you that?" It is my hope that my Republican friends in the Senate would want to have John Bolton testify so that he is under oath and so that we have all the facts. It is my hope that my Republican friends would want to know if there is evidence that President Trump did not tell one of my colleagues the truth. The people of Wisconsin certainly want to know if the president did not tell Senator Johnson the truth. The American people simply want all the facts. They want the truth. In order to provide them that, the Senate must support testimony from relevant witnesses with firsthand knowledge about President Trump's conduct. John Bolton has that, and the Senate must have him testify as a witness in this impeachment trial.
Thank you.
Leader Schumer?
Thank you. Whoa, we get to, yes.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for doing this. So it seems like the White House is turning the tables on Democrats, saying that it's you, your party, the one that's trying to undo the 2016 elections and also trying to influence this year's elections. How do you respond to that in light of your concern that this will turn into a he said, and
The truth is the truth. This is serious stuff. A charge of impeachment is one of the most serious things a Congress can do, and we need all the facts out. And the facts, however they come out, we accept them. We want the truth. So do the American people. It's getting up to 80% of Americans want witnesses and documents. It's getting higher than 60% of Republicans want witnesses and documents. We want the truth. No matter what the White House says, they can't get in the way of that. Everyone wants the truth, maybe except a group of people in the White House and some Republican senators.
what's the Chief Justice's role here? In other words, if Senate Republicans vote against hearing from the witnesses, should the Chief Justice step in and call on those witnesses himself?
Well, the rules of the Senate are that the Chief Justice can make a ruling and then be overruled by the Senate by majority vote. That's the rules of the impeachment trial. Now, we had Chris Van Hollen, Ben's colleague, had an amendment to Mr. McConnell's resolution that would require him to make a ruling, not undoing the Senate's ability. Right now, he can defer. Chief Justice Rehnquist deferred on almost every ruling, didn't make a ruling, and let the Senate do it. We had hoped that the Chief Justice would make a ruling on these things. That was what our amendment said. Republicans don't seem to want to have any independent arbiter here. Yes.
Is there a way that, setting aside the witness argument just for the moment, is there a way that you could get at this?
Only for a moment.
Can you get at it with the questions that you ask of the legal team?
Well, there's going to be all kinds of different questions, but nothing substitutes for direct testimony and cross-examination of eyewitnesses who saw the gravamen of the charges against the president. So certainly there are going to be a whole lot of questions asked, but they're not a substitute for witnesses. Yes?
On the specific question of who might be called, Senator Graham tweeted today, if the Senate calls the witnesses that Democrats want, then the witnesses that President Trump wants should be considered as well. So on that question, if Republicans choose to call a non-relevant witness like Hunter Biden, would that be acceptable to you if it means that the country then gets to hear from John Bolton?
Okay, look, first step. 4 Republicans have to vote to allow witnesses and documents broadly defined, without any specific names. That's what we're fighting for now. Once that happens, let's hope it will, we'll see, who knows, we think that the 4 witnesses we've asked for and the 4 sets of contemporaneous documents we've asked for are essential. And we're for all of those. We're not bargaining with that. If Republicans want to call witnesses, we think that witnesses who are not eyewitness to what happened, documents that are not relevant to what happened, shouldn't be part of this, plain and simple. And if someone tries to make it part of this, I don't think the American people will like it very much. Yes?
If you do reach an agreement to have John Bolton testify, or any of these witnesses from the White House testify, is their testimony worth a protracted legal fight if the White House were to assert any sort of privilege on what they have?
Well, first, I'd say this. We think it's not just John Bolton. In my view, Mick Mulvaney's even more important witness than John Bolton because he was right there at all of this. He was chief cook and bottle washer in terms of implementing this whole scheme, at least if you listen to the House managers and Sondland and some of the other people who testified before us. So that's number one. And what was the second part of your question?
If the White House were to assert any sort of privilege.
Oh, yeah. Look, I believe there would not be a protracted argument. The House had legitimate concerns. They saw what had happened with the president's previous lawyer, McGahn. But this is different. This is the Senate trial where the Senate has the power to determine what's happening. This will be a subpoena that will have bipartisan support by definition, because you're going to need 51. And this will be signed by the Chief Justice. I think the courts will not give much attention to an argument of executive privilege in this situation, because it's the impeachment trial where the Senate has the right to conduct the trial. Yes, sir. No, not you. The guy behind you. Yeah.
Senator Baldwin, actually, you brought up, you said that Eagle, Wisconsin, want to know if the president told my colleagues in the line Johnson the truth. But Johnson is maintaining the president's characterization of what happened. Are you concerned that maybe Johnson is the one not telling the truth about this event?
No, what I'm calling on is for every senator, including Ron Johnson, to vote to call John Bolton as a witness. We need witnesses. We need documents. We need witnesses with firsthand knowledge. I quoted what Johnson reported that the president said to him in their phone call on August 31st, 2019. It is inconsistent with the reporting last night of what John Bolton had said and said that he heard from the president. One of them's not telling the truth, and I think that means that we should all have an interest in hearing from John Bolton, the former National Security Advisor to the president, as a witness.
Cheryl.
So, just to follow up on that, does that mean that perhaps Senator Johnson could testify? And does that put you in a difficult situation? You're saying one of them.
Look, my view is we don't want senators to testify. That's not the point here. We want the eyewitnesses to what the president did to testify. Right? Okay. Over there. Trying to call on a few different people here and there, if I could. Yeah.
Senator, what pressure does this put on people like Mitt Romney with your report about John Bolton? Do you see increased pressure for Romney, Gardner, Alexander?
Well, I never get into any specific names. But there's increased pressure on the whole. I mean, the eyes of America are upon the Republicans in the Senate. They have been before, and now what Mr. Bolton evidently wrote in his book puts even more, increases the desire of the American people to have a fair trial with witnesses and documents. And if there's pressure from what the American people want, a fair trial, that's how it is, plain and simple. It's not us putting on the pressure. It's Bolton and the desire, common sense, plain speaking desire for the truth, which has always been a hallmark of the American people.
Can I say one thing about that?
Yeah, please.
I'd like to say one thing. We thought that the right way to proceed was to have the witnesses and documents before we started the trial itself. And we presented an opportunity for the Senate to deal with that. In response, our Republican colleagues said, no, we'll take that up later. Let's see whether we have a need for those witnesses and documents. We think we should have had them in the beginning so that we could have the proper presentation of a trial. But now that we have gone this route, it's clear that we need the witnesses. Look at what Mr. Bolton is saying. Look at what came out with Parnas. We now have additional information that's come forward. There's conflict between what the president is saying today in the House manager's case, and there are people who have direct knowledge about that who have not testified under oath subject to cross-examination. So our colleagues who said, we'll take this up later, there's now a very strong reason why they should vote to allow the witnesses.
Yes, gentleman with the beard.
Thank you, sir. The president's defense team on Saturday said that there was no direct evidence that the president engaged in this pressure scheme. What is Bolton's revelation?
It's a report of direct evidence, and and Bolton and the contemporaneous documents and all the others, all the more reason it should come before us.
How do you expect them to address that today?
We'll see. We're hoping. Look, we know the pressure they're under. President Trump does not brook criticism, dissent kindly among Republicans. But we're hoping in this kind of solemn, serious, historic, and constitutional proceeding that the weight of doing what's right, the weight of truth, the weight of getting all the facts will weigh heavily on the shoulders of enough Republicans so we can get a fair trial. And as we've said before, we don't know exactly now. We know a little more because of this New York Times publication, but that's not under oath. We don't know what they'll say. All four of them. We don't know what the documents will say. These are hardly Democratic flunkies, nor are they never Trumpers. They're employees of the president, some of the closest employees he's had. And what they say may be exculpatory to the president. What they say may be further condemning of the president. We don't know. We want the truth. Yes, in the back.
The next phase of this is the senators asking questions.
Well, no, the next phase is 2 more days of arguments by the president's lawyers.
Senators asking questions. Can you give us an idea? Are you having guidelines for what the senators
No.
can ask?
No. The only thing we might try to do is make sure that the questions, if 10 people want the same question, that we ask it once. Okay? In the name of the 10.
Both sides, your own team.
Yes, they can ask questions of both sides. Yes.
Senator Schumer, some of the president's defenders have questioned the timing of this report about Bolton. Do you think that?
I don't have any. I have no idea who leaked it and why, but it sure is damning, and we ought to find out from the person who made the comments and wrote the book under oath, plain and simple. Yes, blue jacket, blue, yeah. Teal, you're blue, you're teal. Teal. I feel good that I know what teal is. And mauve, I know mauve now, and
Would you go as far to say that you're optimistic that we've already heard reports of Senator Romney potentially?
no, I've always said it's an uphill fight because of the pressure from the White House and the pressure from Leader McConnell, who don't want to hear the truth. But every day, more evidence, or every few days, something else happens that makes it clearer and clearer that we need the truth, that this is very serious stuff. This isn't just nothing. Thank you, everybody.